Hello and welcome to the ThinkDeep podcast. And I am David Dilworth, and I have Andrew Kim. Every week we're trying to give you some new information, trying to talk about interesting things, and away we go here. So pretty much we kind of had we had our first podcast. We did kind of an audio only version. Then we did one that was like a Ustream live one, and maybe there was some like different dynamics thrown in. So we're going to go ahead and just try to make do kind of like some audio only ones here, and we're going to have some pretty interesting topics to talk about here. So the first thing is that on our Twitter at ThinkDeep, was it ThinkDeep podcast?
ThinkDeep podcast with only one P.
ThinkDeep podcast one. Thank you, Andrew.
No problem, Dave.
So that's we're kind of using that as a tool to kind of post interesting things. And so one of the things that I kind of posted a couple days ago it was something about in Oakland, teenagers, about 1 in 3 have post-traumatic stress. And that was something that kind of caught my attention off of Vice.com, which is this kind of a news channel with different topics on there. But so basically, it had different things about how about the violence and the trauma that's kind of experienced that goes over there. But I know that Andrew, you took a good look at it. What did you think about that?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting figure. It's a rather unfortunate figure as well. It's a shame that a society or a city in this case is affected by something like that, especially when it's right here at home. It's not anywhere else in another country. It's here in the United States, and those are usually things as far as post-traumatic stress. It's usually things that are more reserved for military members, people who are put into extreme situations. Not voluntarily, of course, excluding military, where generally you volunteer to be in the military, but you don't always get to choose where you go for assignment. So it is, but it isn't. Dave, it's just a shame. I wish that there was something we could do about it, but obviously people who have ill intent will do that regardless of the situation.
Right.
So, I mean, what do you think on that?
Well, it's like, one of the things they talked about in the topic is that I think a lot of people kind of correlate this story as in the ghetto equals post-traumatic stress. Well, I guess the scientists that were studying this and the journalists that followed it, they were kind of seeing that a lot of this had to do with basic human things of wanting food, that led to this type of crime, along with the lack of education, of ignorance of different paths to kind of do this. And so the thing that I kind of found sad about it was, I think that one of the things that we really lack kind of like as a society is just educating the importance of like not creating like douchey, ignorant people, because like that's the thing that kind of like spreads this. A lot of this has to do with pride, that they say of thinking of what a man is, and this courage that leads to very stupid behavior of like someone fighting over something petty. But all this kind of ignorance creates this constant alert of high violence, and which leads to these people having what they described in the article as what veteran military called the 1,000-mile dead stare. These kids have this, and they're like 12, and they just have these cold eyes. But that's something that the article had pointed out.
Well, one thing that I find interesting is the fact that, is it really that? Is it as it seems by that article, or are there other influences involved? Is there another agenda behind an article like that? Because one of the things that you said initially was that it's in the uneducated, the quote unquote ghetto areas of Oakland. So it kind of sets the reader up for, automatically thinking that this is only happening in these areas. But in terms of being jaded or being, cold and things of that nature, or I'm sorry, when you were talking about crime, how generally that kind of crime stems from, hunger and trying to provide, food for your kids, and so you steal, or maybe steal for yourself, which leads to, bigger crimes eventually over time. Now, I wouldn't say that that's just limited to those areas. I mean, you look at, arguments and fights. It's not just between people who have no education or little education, or are, lacking in any kind of money there. If you look at a prime example, I saw an article a couple of days ago where two billionaires got into a fight over a woman. So there's fights there. There's fights between nations who are educated. The leaders of those countries are educated. I mean, you look at what's going on right now between Ukraine, Russia, and the United States, and that little triangle of craziness. Putin is educated. Obama is educated. The leaders of Ukraine are educated. Yet, and that's the thing, is when you are educated, I think the fighting just gets a little bit more sophisticated, but it can still be, just as primitive as someone without education or any kind of, financial stability.
Well, the thing that I feel that is very unique about American, I would say, black culture when it comes to the way it's, I guess it's more complex than the education part of it. Let's say if there's laws, certain, have you heard of stop and frisk laws? Have you ever heard about that, like in Arizona? Stop and frisk.
Right.
And different things like that. Where, okay, if a person is put into the system of something that is a minor, let's say, drug offense, a one-time charge, anything like that, if this happens to someone and they get put into that system, so once that happens to them, a lot of those opportunities really shorten up. So once that happens, it's harder to get a job, two, your voting, that's just eliminated. You don't have that voice. There's someone who is a ex-con, our system kind of is designed to make them kind of go back to that crime because your opportunities are even more limited. And so that is what kind of creates into a bigger problem and a consistent cycle. And that's what's kind of like makes this a little bit unique than I would say like the Ukraine or anything like that. Because the way we have like criminals, the view of it kind of like a society way is that I understand that there's bad people. I just don't want them in my neighborhood. And so it's really not a real system of rehabilitation. It's about get them away from me, and we kind of ignore what happens there. And so what happens is they get a lot of other criminals talking to each other and kind of understanding how to commit better crimes on top of being bitter. And you get out of that and you have this real chance of I don't want to go back. But yet, you need to get a job by a certain amount of time for the probation officer tells you, and that's not working. There's your girlfriend has left you. You can't go back home because everybody's turning your back on you because you're a criminal. And so it kind of puts you in these limited option situations to continue the criminal behavior.
Now, I agree with you on some points there, or probably a majority of your points. As far as I do agree that it limits you in terms of your ability to find a job. However, I don't deem it impossible. I've, seen people, there's so many different jobs out there that I don't believe that, should you really want a job? Dave, I used to run 4 part-time jobs, and granted, I don't have a record, but I know, I've been at the bottom, I've been at the top. I know that there's different levels of jobs where some may or may not require background checks, and even certain jobs that do, I know certain ones will have more lax requirements when it comes to that background check. So depending on what type of crime you've committed, it shouldn't hinder you too much. I mean, yes, it does. I do acknowledge that. As far as from my standpoint as an employer, I would, think twice about hiring somebody. And on your other topic that you were talking about, where you believe that we kind of ignore them, we get them out of our area, just out of our faces. Yes, from our perspective, but I can't speak from the perspective of, let's say, a corrections officer or someone within that system, or even, and definitely I can't speak from the terms of someone who's been in that system and then out of it, whether they feel like they've been rehabilitated and, be able to become a functioning member of society, without being a detriment. But however, I have heard stories, for all these stories of people coming out and, they go back into jail or back into the system because they can't get out. I've also heard stories as well of, success stories where they've come out, I don't want to really say learned their lesson, because, again, it might not have been a lesson that it might have been something that they never knew to begin with. I don't know. I can't speak on that part, but I've, seen many stories of where people come out and they make it.
But the reality is that also that your options, it's a lot difficult. We're not saying that I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm saying that it's very unlikely. I mean, there are certain things that I think we need to rethink in how we kind of either charge people or what should be criminalized or not. I mean, most people are in most people are in jail for drugs for these minor drug offenses, and versus like, it kind of like bothers me that I hear certain things like, Bill Clinton, who says that he inhaled, but he didn't inhale, but his little story there. And then you have George Bush, who's admitted to and also is well suspected of doing cocaine, and Obama, who has said that he has smoked marijuana in his past. It's just, to me, for them to say that, and that if Obama was actually pulled over one day and caught, to me, he would not have this path. He would not be the president of the United States. And so to say that either his mind is either hindered, and he wasn't even capable of doing his job, it proves that he can, and that maybe the way that we kind of handle certain things like this may not be the right way, because he's just a person who got lucky. And someone else who is not that lucky, who lives in a different state, life could take a whole different path over something like stop and frisk, that if something was around like that when Obama was there, probably would not be our president.
Well, it's an interesting point you make. However, you make it sound like he's still continues to, partake in that, the illegal substance. But the truth of the matter is he's done it in the past. Now, again, I can't speak for Obama's behalf because I'm not him. I'm not his advisor. I don't know his personal details. So, yeah, he may smoke still to this day. I don't know that. But I would imagine / hope that, when he's making an important decision, what he does and that's the tough thing about being a president is you really don't have an off day, do you? You're constantly under scrutiny, and you are constantly making important decisions that can alter the course of a nation. So,
dude, you just made me think of Obama. Like, imagine him just like playing like Xbox or something. like one day in his underwear is like, man, I don't feel like being president for like an hour. I wonder if he ever does that.
I don't think he does. I really don't. I could see Bush doing that, but I really couldn't see Obama doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying though is, and that's the thing is, as far as drugs and what you do to your body, that's your thing. However, if it affects somebody else, if it has the potential to, harm someone else, whether it be someone close to you or someone you don't even know, just anybody, whether it's through direct or indirect actions, I believe that, we should take a second look at that particular substance. Now, however, if it's not hurting anybody but your own self, as long as it's not in like a, you know, a rapid mean of hurting yourself, such as, you know, like a knife to your wrist or throat, which that would just be suicide.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, there's some people who get pleasure out of self-inflicting pain. So, but
there's
we
some
don't have
people
laws against that.
Well, there's some people that get pleasure out of inflicting pain on others, and that is right. That reminds me of like Dick Cheney shooting someone in the face, which, but yeah, it's which brings me to kind of like the next point of hunting.
Well, I mean, as far as that goes, here's the thing: I don't think Dick Cheney is a masochist by any means of that word. But, you know, it's just a hunting accident. And as far as that, now we're getting into a topic that's really, really, you know, debated by many out there. And that's gun control, hunting, whether or not you should have, you know, automatic, or not automatic, but what the media has dubbed, quote unquote, assault rifles for use of hunting, because the NRA and hunters alike and gun enthusiasts alike will say, hey, you know, we use these, quote unquote, assault rifles for hunting purposes.
Yes.
And, you know, they're like, oh, why do you need this? Well, here's the thing. It's one, we have the right. Okay. And I know when I say we, I'm not talking about me and like my buddy or anything like that. I'm talking about we as a nation. You know, as the citizen of the United States of America, we have to come together and realize that we are one people. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we have the right to bear arms. Now, whether you choose to do so or not, that's completely up to you. And some people are afraid of guns or, you know, things of that nature, so they're not going to go near that, and that's fine. That's more power to them. But you can't oppress somebody of their rights to own one. You know, and the law doesn't say a specific type of firearm. It doesn't say you can't, or you know, you're allowed to bear arms, but only this type. You know, it says you are allowed to bear arms. Okay.
But
so
you don't think that should be modified? Like, okay, they said that, but you know, they had like muskets. You know, they put a ball in there, and they pump this little shaft down there, and they aim and they shoot. I mean, it wasn't like AR-15s with, you know, when they made that. You don't think that should be modified a little bit, like?
No, and I personally don't. And the reason why is because I believe our forefathers saw, you know, the progression that our country was taking, and they made the statement vague for that particular reason, for the advancement in technologies and in the firearms industry. So that being said, here's the thing about that: if you modify it to where it limits us, because the whole purpose for that is the fact that in the Constitution it also states that we we can overthrow a tyrannical government. So if we do not have the proper arms, and keep in mind, these quote-unquote assault rifles, they are not fully automatic. You cannot, as a normal citizen, get a fully automatic weapon of any sorts. They're only semi-automatic. And so to clarify that...
How easy is it to make them automatic?
I'm sorry?
How easy is it to make it automatic?
It's not.
It's not? I mean, I'm not a gun expert. I'm asking.
Right. And I'm no gun expert either, for that matter, to be honest with you. However, I am a little bit more, versed in on that topic.
Let me see if I can Google it. Let me see if someone knows.
All right, well, go ahead and Google it, and then I'll continue going with what I was saying. Is that what happens if our government does become tyrannical? You know, if that does happen, then what? Then how are we supposed to defend ourselves? So not only that, and here's the thing, is rules and laws are only followed by good people. Okay? So you change that and you limit the good law-abiding citizens to what they can have and what they can carry. The only ones who are going to listen to that are the law-abiding citizens. The criminals are still going to find ways to get illegal guns. They're going to find ways to, whether it be stealing, bribing somebody, paying them extra money for a particular firearm. They're going to find ways around it to obtain these things. And you're going to still see violence. Look at Canada. I have a couple of friends who live in Canada. They say that guns are not allowed, but there is still gun violence. Obviously not as much as here in the States, but it still exists, because if someone with ill intent is that determined enough, they're gonna make it happen, and that's what goes with anything for that matter. Not only criminals, but if you have, if you have with all your might and you want to try to do something, you're gonna get it done if you put everything you've got into it, more times than none. So it's the same concept. So the only people you're hurting are the law-abiding citizens and not the criminals.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess, and also, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I guess that was like one of the first things, a myth that it is easy to make them automatic. So I guess you're right about that, man. That it's kind of, I guess it's hard to do.
Right, because here's the thing: is you got to find the proper parts to make a weapon automatic and a fully automatic weapon. But to get those parts, you have to have a certain type of license. I want to say it's like a class 3.
I gotta send you a video on 3D printing on Vice, man. They got they show you they're making molds of guns of sending code of the internet.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Man, what if that comes out?
No, it's already out.
Well, but this guy holds this one source of code that would that has these certain pieces. I think either to make them automatic or something to make it capable for people to make guns. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Is I know the story you're talking about. There was a gentleman who actually has a design for printing gun parts. Now, as far as what the FTA, Firearms, Tobacco, and I think it's the FTA, they consider what's called the lower receiver the actual part of the gun. That's what's called the gun, is the lower receiver, and he has the ability to print that. Now, the federal government ordered a cease and desist on that guy so he cannot distribute it, but he had already distributed it before that cease and desist order went out, so it is out there. However, if you're caught with it, you're going to get in big trouble. Mm-hmm. And then that's another thing is, why stop us? I mean, there's people who say, then anyone can get it and print it, but to get one of those 3D printers, it's not easy. It's rather expensive. They're rather cumbersome, rather large. There's some smaller versions. On top of that, you got
Blu-ray players were expensive one day. I mean,
what's that?
I said Blu-ray players were expensive at one time. HDMI cables, remember that shit? That was they were expensive at one time. I mean, as technology advances and the parts come down, I think it's inevitable for 3D printing, but I think there will be something that's gonna be big that we don't even see coming. Something like the internet you can't predict. And so, I mean, I'm not a gloom and doom type of person. I don't fear that 3D printing is going to bring this revolt of guns. But I do feel that I feel like you're crazy if you're either one way or the other. I think that's what most people is I think the problem is they take a stance of for guns or not for guns. I feel like I am very much a person that enjoys guns, understands, I think that you should learn early where the safety is, different parts of the guns. I did that all throughout, growing up Boy Scouts, and all the people I know, my cousins and stuff like that, they kind of grew up with guns there, growing up together, and they're the safest people with guns. And so I think education and things like that. So I'm not a prude by any means when it comes to it. And I think that there's something about hunting as a sport that has a pride to it. But I don't like to kill things. I want to make sure that that's something that I'm going to kill that I'm going to eat for the animal and have a deep respect for. But at the same time, I feel like having some regulation is not insane. I think that there's some things that still need to be regulated with guns. Just like how we didn't see the internet coming. I understand that the forefathers are looking forward for technology, but there's stuff that they didn't even see that are variables that didn't exist before. And
I agree.
And so there should be some regulation.
Well, I agree with you in terms of, the forefathers obviously, had no idea what was coming in terms of to the extent of what has, come to pass. However, I believe that the regulations that we have now, keep in mind, these regulations that we have now weren't in existence back when our forefathers made that law in the Constitution. These regulations are new. They're recent, as recent as Obama, as recent as Clinton.
But time there's a law, there's always this revolt. It's like everybody, like every gun nut that revolts against just any little thing, and it's just like, come on, let's just be realistic. Like, okay, you can't just like walk around with guns at the airport. Let's just agree that that's insane. And like,
why?
Well, in an airport where there's...
How is that any different from your church, your house, well, it's obviously different from your house because there's more people there, but how is it different than carrying it at a restaurant, in public?
Because I feel like when you're involving international travel, especially when people are being exposed to different cultures for like the first time, like, if I'm not saying that this is normally the case, but the thing is that this low percentage of this happening is why this can't happen. If I'm a person who is traveling from and it is maybe in an Islamic country where the values are different there. We kind of understand that independence of women is more important. You don't want to rape them and things like that. And there, it's kind of like this respect and the hierarchy of the manhood is there, and what you guys are thinking are crazy. Yes, if someone gets out of line, you must correct it because you have to have the pride of the family, never to be exposed. This is very private. This is us. And they come for the first time on there with kind of like this heightened way of thinking coming to a new land. That with having like weapons involved in that situation, I feel like can make things escalate on a higher level if there was guns being allowed at an airport.
Okay, so my rebuttal to that is I still don't understand the correlation because, okay, so let's say a Muslim, man comes to the United States. Well, for one thing, the United States' culture is so vast in terms of its reach. The reach of the American culture is so vast. It reaches from here all around the world. You can go to pretty much any country that, modern country, and even some third world countries, and say the United States, and people will know exactly where it's at. They'll know where you're from. They'll know what language you speak. That being said, it should come to no surprise to anyone visiting the States that, it's going to be different than their own country, regardless of whether you're coming from, let's say, a place like Tokyo, Japan, where it's, technology central. Coming from there to here, they're going to know. They're going to know that there's a difference. Same thing with let's say Russia. They're going to know that there's a difference coming from there to here. So, you already know. And two, no matter the escalation, if you're a law-abiding citizen, there's rules for carrying a weapon. You have to get a permit to purchase a handgun, for one. And usually there's a 3-day waiting period on that for that background check to go through. Okay? Once the background check clears, you are then handed the permit from your local law enforcement agency. Then you can take that permit to your local gun store and purchase a gun. Okay? Now, as far as that goes, they do go through a background check. It's not perfect. I will give you that. It is not perfect. So maybe,
But you agree with that type of process. You don't think that is ridiculous. You're in favor of that type of regulation. Like, there should be something that happened to get a gun, or do you feel like it should be, just as free as purchasing something at a local hardware store like you would purchase a hunting gun if you're under the age of 18, like a shotgun? Do you think it should be as open as that, or do you agree with like the background checks?
Well, I do. Well, here's the thing: the background check already exists; it's in place, and I agree with that because that's the thing is, as opposed to a rifle or a shotgun, which is very hard to conceal. If you've got a shotgun strapped to your back or try to put one in your coat, you got to keep in mind the barrel itself of most shotguns are 26 inches or longer in terms of a standard hunting gun. Like it's what hunters call a bird gun. Now there are tactical shotguns that are usually police standard issue, which are 18 inches as far as the barrel goes. However, even then, the bulk of it is a lot harder to hide and to conceal than a handgun is, and that's why those steps are in place in order to obtain a handgun. So now going back to my statement there, so a law-abiding citizen is gonna go through all those steps, all the proper channels to obtain a handgun legally. Thus, there are also rules, and also there are concealed carry permits as well, and those you have to sit through. I want to say at least minimally an 8-hour class and some range time. And once you have shown proficiency in the knowledge and operation of that said firearm, you are then, after a while, it takes a while for that thing to come in the mail, but you get what's called a concealed carry weapons permit, excuse me. Once you have that, then you can buy the guns and you can conceal it, so no one even knows. Because you went through all the proper channels, you're a stickler for rules, generally speaking, if you go through all that trouble to get a concealed carry. And at that point, it's a just in case type of deal. Look up, if you will, on Google, wherever you'd like, concealed carry weapons permits holders, saving the day, coming to the rescue of a situation. There are rather unfortunate accidents due to that, but there's accidents in all aspects of life. I mean, if that's the case, why not ban driving? There's people who drink and drive. There's people who text and drive and hit people. There's people who don't pay attention. There's people who fall asleep. There's so many different ways to get into an accident in a vehicle. However, there's not any new rules on obtaining a driver's license. More people die by accidents, in a vehicle than they do by handgun.
Well, I mean,
would you not agree with that?
I think that when you say more people die by driving, I think the first two things you kind of like stated involve like drinking. So I think that drinking and driving is one separate. If you're looking at that category, I think that you've made it way too broad.
If you're gonna say that, then you know what? People who are crazy who illegally obtain guns, that's one separate thing. That's a whole separate thing. Then that's not counting towards. Do you see how that argument is moot? Because I can do the same thing with people who use firearms illegally to commit crimes or to cause harm to other people.
I think I think what my stance is that the beginning of what I was saying. Okay, I made an analogy about an airport, but before that, my whole point is saying that what I think that is ridiculous is that gun owners who feel that no regulation, that guns should be is very free. I feel that the problem is that anytime there is a politician that wants to introduce any type of new type of level of regulation, it's automatically this big revolt against these gun nuts. And so I think that we agree on a point, because in everything that you describe, it involved regulation to get to the process to find out, okay, can you handle having a gun? I am all for that. I think there should be more of that. What I detest is not having that.
Okay, well, here's the thing. There's nothing for you to detest then, because it's already in place.
But, my point is, it's ridiculous to me that there are people that are out there kind of like, I guess the best description I could have it is more of a Tea Party type of a follower who is say, okay, well, how about we add AR-15 shouldn't be allowed in one certain type of location. Maybe that's one type of thing. It seems ridiculous now, just like before waiting 3 days to own a gun was ridiculous. And now we kind of realize, like, okay, maybe that is pretty cool that you wait 3 days. Maybe that is something that you need. And in your description about it, you describe that process of getting to the of knowing that this person can handle a gun. So I think that there is still a large percentage of people who feel like those rules, of even those basic ones that are already in place right now, are ridiculous, and think that there should be nothing else that should be added, and they're constantly just against it just because it's a regulation of a gun law. I think that there are some that are good, that are necessary.
Now, the key word that you just said is "I feel." You feel like there's these people who are opposed to any sort of limitation or any sort of regulation. You feel that. However, that's not what is in actuality. In actuality, an overwhelming amount, more than the majority, obviously, of gun owners are in favor of regulation. Not necessarily adding new regulation, but they are in favor of having a form of regulation to obtain guns because they understand the potential hazards of guns. So they are for that. However, what they're not for is more regulations. And on top of that, there's not many people out there who want to be able to just go to a store like Lowe's and buy a gun, a handgun. It may be something you feel, however, that's just not the case because, of obvious implications in terms of what that kind of craziness that could cause. Now, a lot of the debate in terms of, if you've seen on the news where they take the spin is how about, because again, you're going to see guns always come up in the media whenever there is a tragic event that has to do with guns. However, those weapons could easily be replaced with any other form of weapon, such as blunt objects, dirty bombs that you can make from fertilizer and other things, just household kitchen chemicals. However, there's no regulations on that. There's no, so
I think you underestimate how many dumb people are out there. I think.
No, I know that. I know there's plenty of dumb people out there. But here's the thing, though, is now we're getting to the meat of it all is the mental side of it, the mental health. Okay, so when it comes to that, you look at these people who obtain these, because it's a health issue. Generally, there's a doctor-patient confidentiality between those two parties, where unless that person exposes themselves as being a threat to society, the doctor is not allowed to, openly say or openly distribute that kind of information. So when the background check goes through, there's nothing that comes up as, oh, this is a mental patient. And so there are some times where people like that will get handguns because they have a clean record. But, in terms of there's no criminal record, but they don't do any kind of cross-referencing. So it is unfortunate. So in terms of maybe on that side, if you wanted to add regulation, I know that there would be no one in the firearms community who would disagree with that.
I think no one is a strong statement. I think that it's very easy to think that people are very well versed and much of a thinker like yourself when it comes to gun regulation. I think that I'm not saying that all people in the gun community groups that you're naming are people who are against all regulation, but I'm saying that if there was people out there who disagree with any type of regulation, they probably are in a gun group.
Well, but okay, that's a fair point. And the thing is, however, being in that group, because that's the closest thing that they have to any kind of advocacy for what they believe is their viewpoint. So that's why they're going to side. Of course, they're going to side. There's not a middle ground. There's not a party that says, okay, let's think of it from both sides. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's make, with all these suggestions. There isn't a middle ground. It's either you like guns and you're for them, and by that I don't mean you want them, in the free market, just for anyone to buy, just like you would buy a stick of bubble gum. No, but in the free market. So you either got one side or you got the other. There is not a middle ground for them to choose. So that's why they do, side obviously with the pro-gun camp, because they are also pro-gun, but more of an extreme form of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and again, as far as back to your point in terms of the actual hunting aspect of it, the only, I agree, hunting as a sport isn't really, I mean, it is challenging in the sense of marksmanship. However, there's better things we can do with our time. If you want to do that in terms of marksmanship, there's tons of shooting competitions that are available in most cities that you can go to. But however, as far as for sustenance, in terms of deer hunting, turkey hunting, dove hunting, things of that nature, I have nothing against that because, you do use that. You eat the meat, you take it to a place, or even if you don't, you can always donate the meat. And that's the thing is most hunters do that. If they don't eat the meat themselves, they donate it. However, most cases, as far as hunters go, they hunt because they also like the taste of the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on your definition of hunters. If you're talking about, people in camo in America, yeah. But hunting is definitely of all aspects around the world in different forms. And I think that I'm very interested in itself of hunting, the whole aspect of using your own senses to track down an animal and kind of go to that means to feed yourself. Something I think about that connection and that kind of animalistic instinct is something that I think that is kind of primal, that's ingrained to us to kind of want to do. And I think something along the line of the way we've kind of shaped our society has kind of turned that either kind of instinct either to entertainment, violence against each other. I think that all of this is just a result of us having these kind of caveman mind type of instincts. I think that it's kind of natural to, if you're more intelligent than another animal in history, we either put them into captivity or we or dominate them in some way, form, or fashion. And so I think the whole reason why violence is committed is a whole different topic that I'm kind of interested in.
Well, absolutely. I mean, in terms of, yeah, we all have a primal urge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you want to take it from a psychological standpoint, if you will, you've got, what's called old brain and new brain. And this is, I want to say, well, you know what? I can't even say this is widely accepted because I don't know for sure. However, it is acknowledged in textbooks that, there is old brain and new brain. And old brain is, can I eat it? Can I sleep with it? Or is it dangerous to me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you see something and you're like, okay, can I eat it? Is it food? Okay, can I sleep with it? Can I reproduce? To continue your genealogy there, your lineage. And is it dangerous to me? That's old brain. That's how the old brain thinks. And then the new brain obviously is a lot. We don't have to worry about those things as much because we've gone as a society for so long without having to worry about these things. And when I say that, I should say that Western society, modern society, obviously there's going to be countries out there that don't have the luxury of not having to worry about a place to sleep, food to eat, and just procreation in general. So that's not to say that way of thinking doesn't exist altogether. However, with modern society and us, yeah, we've got that urge, and some people use it, in terms of the hunting thing. Guys are hunters and women are gatherers. There's that whole thing about that, and that's that's a whole other topic. We could probably spend another hour talking on just that alone, but I'm not going to go there. So yeah, that exists absolutely, and people find different ways to get that. I mean, for example, you were talking about hunting and how you track your prey, and you obviously find it and then you succeed in capturing it. Well, if you look at a violent crime such as rape, that's it's very similar to that. It's I'm no expert on that either for that matter, but I would imagine it would be very similar in terms of you you seek an opportunity, wait it out, you track someone, and then you make your move at the sign of an opening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of basic education that isn't being delivered, in my opinion, generally because I believe society thinks that it's common sense. But that's the problem with society today, is that there's not much common sense out there these days. And that's, again, my opinion. I mean, yes, you've got your fair share of common sense, but you also don't. I mean, if you just type in odd news, you'll see tons of weird stuff. So, but as far as that goes, just I guess the best way to close that off is hunting. Live and let live.
Yeah.
That's how I want to close out with that. Live and let live. As far as hunting it goes, it's not hurting anybody. We're not hunting endangered species. Now, granted, some people try to, and that's called poaching, not hunting. But, the people who do it by legal means, they're hunters. They actually buy, you go to your local government and you actually buy, I want to say, tags, because there's only a certain amount of game you're allowed to hunt per year, per session, if you will. And so you buy tags. And even then, not everyone can have those tags. There's usually a lottery, depending on how popular whatever they're hunting is, however popular that season is, there's a lottery for who gets those tags. So, it's live and let live is what I say. What do you think? What are your final words on that, Dave?
Yeah. I mean, it's a complex issue. It's definitely the always have like this vision that I kind of imagine, like, what if the kind of like the opposite end of it won? What if like they were like, okay, tomorrow we're going to ban all guns? Like, what police officers are going to be walking towards the door and be like, hello, I'm going to need your firearm, please? There's going to be, like, that's going to be the biggest source of violence right there. It's going to be rednecks on their porch going, you're never taking my gun. Like, that'll be the ultimate, like, there should be, like, a science fiction book about that.
Well, I don't think that's just limited to rednecks. I believe that's going to be anyone who is a law-abiding citizen who knows their rights and knows that it can't be taken away from them. You know what I mean? That's not, as far as, that's how passionate they are about that particular law in the United States.
I agree. That's why I think it's ridiculous to even bring up the argument of banning guns, because I'm like, okay, that's not realistic. Like, you can't do that. Like, that's impossible. Yeah. We are beyond that point of even trying to waste energy on debating that. So when people say that to me, I'm just like, okay, all right, just think about that clearly. Tomorrow, okay, Obama goes up, we're going to ban all guns. And then, like, that would be the ultimate violence, that would be against it. That would cause even more turmoil. Like, that's not a realistic solution.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Yeah. It's a very good point you make. But, well, it's getting close to ending time here, I'm assuming. So let's, for the final thing, let's talk about how to shut off your brain when you just can't sleep. Because I don't know about you, Dave, but I went to sleep at 5 o'clock this morning.
Really?
Because I couldn't go to sleep. Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So there was something. We're kind of like, we have this up on our Twitter at ThinkDeep podcast with 1P, and if you take a look at that, there was something where there's like this luminosity game that I have downloaded on my iPhone. And it's supposed to kind of like, I guess, make you a sharper thinker, increase cognitive function by having all these different type of brain games that involve memory, flexibility, problem solving. And I've been playing this for a while. I had a trial version for like a couple of months, but I finally got the full version where they have like more of those, and they even have more games if you do it from the computer. And so I started following them on Twitter, and they put an article up about how to shut off your brain when you just can't sleep on there. I know I kind of read most of the kind of like the bulletin point ones, but I found them pretty interesting. But did you try any of these out or anything?
Well, I mean, as far as some of this stuff I do on a regular basis, not all of these steps, but just some of them, because sometimes I actually don't want to sleep, believe it or not. I mean, and that's crazy. I know it sounds crazy coming from me because I'm someone who loves to sleep, but sometimes my mind just wanders, and that's what this article was about. It was talking about how usually these days, especially with the connection through social media, that we are almost on 24/7. You're getting updated feeds on Facebook and podcast streams and Twitch and all these different things. So it's hard to just say, okay, you know what, I'm done. Good night. You can't just turn off your brain like hitting a power switch. So it gives you some tips on how to help you get ready for sleep, how to prepare yourself mentally and physically. One of those things is, getting away from screens. Don't look at a screen. Read a book. Just prepare yourself. So anytime you look at a screen, such as a tablet, PC, phone, the bright light is going to, subconsciously trick your mind into thinking that it's still day because it's light. It's a source of light. Another point that they make is don't worry when you're asleep because worrying is not going to do anything for you while you're laying in bed. It's not going to change the problem. It's not going to solve the problem, more importantly.
See, I don't know about that one. I don't know if I'm worried. Like, how can I don't want to be worried. That's the whole point. How do I not be worried?
Well, I mean, as far as that one goes, they're talking about if you're going to worry, think about a solution to it, and if you can't, then don't even lay in bed worrying. Leave the bed, get out, go out into the living room. Your bedroom should be your safe haven. It should be a place where there is no worries, where you can go to just relax and be one with yourself. So get up, go out, do something, just a little light activity, Sudoku puzzle. And then once you get tired, go back into your bed and try to pass out. And then the third point that it's saying is focus on mental imagery. Now, you've heard the whole thing, hey, try counting sheep. Well, you may laugh at that, but there's something to be said about, counting sheep as far as from what the article says. It helps you get your mind off of, what was bothering you throughout the day because you're using the active part of your brain to do something. Then after a while, what happens is your subconscious brain takes over and you kind of just, go from there and you drown out and you just fade away into sleep. And then the fourth part, actually, we already hit the fourth part. The fourth part was separate productive worry from unproductive worry, which is what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, there's no point in worrying about something that you can't change, right there and then or immediately. Now, there are some good things that do come from worrying, doing productive worrying. Like I said, don't worry about the problem. Try to find the solution. And sometimes in doing that, brainstorming, you can come up with a solution. So there's two different things. So just be mindful of that. I have the actual article. It's from the Huffington Post, actually, this particular article. I have that on my Twitter account, which is at ThinkDeep Andrew. So you can go there and find it, or you can go to the Huffington Post and find it through that means as well. I don't know, Dave, if you retweeted that on our podcast Twitter, but if you have, it's there. If not, then you can always just go to my page and my Twitter and find that there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was. I guess it came from Huffington Post and then went to Luminosity, and then I saw it there. But yeah, it's up there.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, it's yeah. Well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and try some of those different kind of techniques. But I thought
you have trouble sleeping?
Well, I feel like ever since I got back from the cruise I went on like a couple weeks ago, like I've been sleeping really well, but it's like slowly kind of like going away. Like I'm staying up more and more, I guess, at night. I don't know.
Well, I mean that's very understandable. I mean, the thing is, no matter how much of a fun time you're having somewhere else, it's nothing like your bed. You slept on your bed for so long, on a daily or nightly basis, I should say. Heck, sometimes even a daily basis. but you've been on that same bed for so long, you're used to that. So unless you do some kind of activity when you're out traveling where it just completely drains you and you just pass out from that just from sheer exhaustion, it's going to be hard to get good sleep. Only because another reason why might be because you're excited for the next day. You know, you're excited for the new things to come, the new experiences that you have potentially coming to you. But now, now that you're here, you've gotten acclimated. It's been a couple of weeks now, and the stress of daily life is wearing on you, which is also making it a little bit more difficult for you to sleep. So yeah, give those a shot and let me know how it goes. We'll you can give the viewers, or excuse me, the listeners an update next time we do a podcast on those methods and see which ones you like best.
Yeah, definitely. I think another reason why I've been kind of a little bit lazy today. I've been working out in the mornings, and there's like this dude on YouTube. I'm trying to figure out what his name is, and I've been there's a lot of times like before when I work out, then you work your legs every now and then, but you always kind of want to work out your upper body. But this guy had a very interesting take on why you should work out your legs, and I did one of his leg workouts. And when you work out your legs, man, you just like, you don't feel like moving. it's those couple of days you're just kind of like sore and stuff like that. Man, this leg workout he had was pretty nasty.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm no stranger to leg workouts.
Yeah.
Although, granted, I haven't worked out in a while, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what this guy's name is.
Well, Dave, while you're doing that, one of the things I wanted to mention, like lately, I've been actually live streaming, Dave. I don't know if you're familiar with what live streaming is, but are you familiar?
You told me a little bit about something. We were talking about that earlier, and I kind of was news to me. I know that you did a little bit when PlayStation 4 came out, and we were both playing there, but I didn't know you were continuing doing live streaming. So, but yeah, tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, well, live streaming is actually broadcasting yourself on the internet, and it is what it is. It's live. It's you're broadcasting it live and you're streaming it through the internet for viewers who have access to that to be able to watch. And right now I'm using an application called Twitch, and Twitch is probably the most popular form of live streaming gameplay, and that's video game gameplay. Back in the day, PewDiePie, he was the one who made it popular, by a site, by a channel called Let's Play. And so I'm doing that now and having a good time with it. Now, I haven't done that a lot when you and I started streaming initially, but I just recently got into it and I met a lot of cool people out there. So just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I was reading a news article or watching a news clip, and the anchor seemed so shocked. She said, because it was explained to her that gamers, not only do they play games, but they also watch people play games for extended periods of time. And she was like, that's a thing? People do that? And in almost a derogatory manner, and that didn't sit well with me. It goes to show you that there's a lot of stuff out there in the world that people just don't know about. So I was just wanted your take on that, and what do you think, in closing?
I'm treating this, have to tell you, I'm treating it like skinny jeans. I don't understand it. There apparently it is popular. You were kind of like telling me about how Google wants to acquire them, because Google, they definitely do smart things and they are interested in this company. It must be something bigger that I don't know about. And just from first gut when I hear about it, my whole thing is that I love playing video games. But the thing that on the opposite end, I hate watching other people play video games. I just want to play the video games. So to me, I don't get it why people want to watch video games, but apparently I'm probably out of the norm, out of the loop of that. That probably is something that kind of like people, want to see there. But that's kind of like pretty much, what I think about it. I am very curious to see how this goes. I'm curious about that world of it, and I think that now I'm gonna try to more understand something that that seems to be that's growing and becoming very popular.
Right. Well, absolutely. I mean, Dave, if you're curious about it, I'm actually streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/Revolver Enforcer. You could also follow me at Rev_Enforcer. So if you ever get a chance, Dave, just come by and watch me. Well, not literally come by, because obviously you're in a different state. What I mean is just go to that site. When I stream it, it'll actually send an email out to people who follow me, so you can actually watch and you'll see what it's all about.
All right. Well, this concludes the Think Deep podcast, and hope you guys enjoyed it. And we're gonna have many more to come. This is a work in progress for us. Please follow us at Think Deep Podcast with 1P on Twitter. And also follow us and tell us some different topics. We'll talk about your topics and give you a little shout out if it sounds something that we're interested in. We definitely want to make this kind of a community environment of open communication, and people have interesting things to say. So please. Any type of topics you want to talk about, Think Deep Podcast. I'm out. Anything else, Andrew?
That's it. I just wanted to thank all of our listeners out there for listening to us, and also, not necessarily putting up with this, but just hanging in there. I know sometimes we go some extreme ways and say some things that you might not agree with, but that's the thing, is we want to share many different aspects and viewpoints on different topics. So we encourage different thoughts. So please tweet at us your thoughts on the topics we talked about today, and topics you want to hear about, and your viewpoints on them, because we would love to hear them. So thank you very much, and we will see you next time, guys.
All right.